Hello, my name's Claire Tyler from Claire Tyler Couture. Today I'd like to talk to you about doing buttonholes on your sewing machine. I know that can be a terrifying thought and a lot of people are very nervous about doing buttonholes on their sewing machine. But if you've got a machine that does a one-step buttonhole, it couldn't be easier. In fact, if you're thinking of upgrading your sewing machine, a one-step buttonhole would be the minimum requirement I would suggest. Let me show you how. Okay, so most one-step buttonhole machines will do a number of different buttonholes. You can see the ones that this machine does just here. You'll find very similar buttonholes on most makes and models. I'm going to run through all of these with you so you can see what they look like. Before we start stitching, we need to put the foot onto the machine. This is a one-step buttonhole machine foot. The back of the foot slides in and out like this, and you can just put the button in the back and close it up to hold the button nice and securely in the back. To put the foot on the machine, you need to take off the existing foot, press the button on the back here. I'm just going to grab hold of my needle thread so I don't lose it. And then slide the foot in from the side there and pick up the foot. So the longest part of the foot with the button in is at the back there. The next thing you need to do is pull down the buttonhole lever. At the back there's a little buttonhole lever here, and you just pull that right down so it sits between the two guides here. I'm going to select the first buttonhole, which on this machine is number 18. This is just a standard buttonhole with square ends. So I'm just going to select that one. Now I'm going to grab a piece of fabric, and whenever you're doing a buttonhole sample, you should always set up your fabric like your garment's going to be. So I've interfaced this piece of fabric, so that's all ready to go, and I'm going to fold it in half because generally you're doing a buttonhole through a couple of layers. When you're marking your buttonhole, I'm going to turn this around. I'm just going to mark here where I want my buttonhole to start. Most one-step buttonholes will stitch backwards. So the machine is going to stitch backwards from this mark. I'm going to put the fabric underneath the foot and then lower down so that the needle is going into the mark that I've just made on the fabric. All I'm going to do now is gently hold onto the thread here, put my foot on the pedal and let the machine stitch the buttonhole. So this machine does a straight stitch back and then it's going to zigzag forwards. There we go, so it's going to straight stitch back and then it's going to zigzag forwards. It'll bar tack at the end and then it will lock and it beeps to tell you it's finished. And I can take my fabric out and there we go, a perfect buttonhole. So that's the first one that this machine will do. I'm just going to trim that thread there so that it's not going to get in the way. And I'm going to do a couple of samples of the other ones just to show you what alternatives you have. So for instance, number 19, I'm going to start that just next to this one. This one's got a curve at one edge. Just always remember that your buttonhole is going to stitch backwards. So it's doing the curve at this end and then it's zigzagging backwards. That's another nice buttonhole there with a curve on one end. Number 20 on this machine This is a nice one. This is one I quite like to use on blouses or pyjama tops. This one's got a curve on both ends. This one's stitching backwards and curving on both ends. That's a nice one with a curve on both ends. Oops. Oh, let me just cut that thread right off so it's not getting in the way. The next one, which is 21 on this machine, has a little circle at one end, which is actually for shank buttons. So if you're putting things like jeans, when you've got a jeans button or something like that, then this would be a good buttonhole for that. So again, it's zigzagging back and then it will stitch straight forward and zigzag back again. So basically it's doing the zigzags in the same direction. So they should be even on both sides. So that's a nice buttonhole for doing if you're working with jeans. The next one I want to show you on this woven fabric is number 23. This one here, and this one looks like a hand stitched buttonhole. So if you haven't got time to do a hand stitched buttonhole, this would be a really nice one to do. Go. That's just again beeping to tell us it's finished, and there you can see that looks like a hand stitched buttonhole. So there's quite a lot of variety there to cover most garments. There are a couple of others that I just wanted to talk to you about, which you may find on your machine. On here, that's number 22, actually just number 22 on this machine, and they call this one a stretch buttonhole. Now I wouldn't want my buttonhole to stretch, but if I was going to do a buttonhole on a stretch garment, on a stretch fabric, I would interface it with a woven interfacing. So I wouldn't use a stretch interfacing, I'd use a woven interfacing. Again, I'm going to fold my fabric in half. This is a jersey, but I've interfaced it. And I'm going to select that stretch buttonhole, number 22. And just show you what this one looks like. I think this is quite a nice decorative buttonhole actually, so although it's called a stretch buttonhole, you could use it on your woven fabric as well. If you are going to do a buttonhole in a stretch garment, you could just interface the area where the buttonhole is going to go, so you don't have to interface the whole piece. There we go. So that is they call a stretch buttonhole. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of variety there in the buttonhole. So something for all of your garments, and your machine may have some other ones as well. But basically, they're all do the same thing. They all zigzag away from you and then stitch back to give you a really nice result. A couple of things I wanted to just say while I'm here at the sewing machine. It's all very well doing a buttonhole on a small sample like this. When you come to do your buttonhole on your garment, just make sure that nothing touches that foot at the back. You could have your whole garment on the table behind your machine. Make sure that nothing touches the back of the foot there, because that will just stop the buttonhole mid-flow, and then it's really tricky to get started again. You probably have to unpick it and start again, which nobody wants to do. And also when you're guiding your fabric through, particularly if you've got long nails like me, make sure that your nail doesn't touch that button so it tries to change direction halfway through. So that's how you can stitch all your buttonholes on the machine. I'm just going to talk to you now about how to cut these open neatly. Once you've stitched your buttonhole, you need to cut it open. There's several ways again you could do this. You could take your seam ripper and go from one end into the middle. Never go this way, otherwise you risk cutting the edge of your buttonhole. So always go from one end into the middle and then from the other end into the middle. Or you can use a buttonhole chisel and a little chopping board. Before you do either of those methods, I would suggest that you use some fray check. This is fray check or fray stopper. And just run that down the centre of your buttonhole and allow it to dry. So this is like a very fine glue. Just run it down the centre of your buttonhole and allow this to dry. And what that's going to do is allow you to cut your buttonhole really cleanly without having any frayed edges. Always test fray stopper or fray check on your fabric to make sure it doesn't mark your fabric once it's dried, just to be on the safe side. So I'm going to let that one dry, but I have done one earlier, of course. So this is one that I put fray check down the middle of a little while ago. And now I'm going to take my buttonhole chisel and just place it in the middle of the buttonhole and push down. You can hear that very satisfyingly slicing through the buttonhole. And just push down. There we go. Oh, needs to do a little bit more on that side there, just to get it really accurate. And a bit more in the middle, just to make sure I got it all. There we go. And there's my buttonhole, nice and cleanly cut open. So machine buttonholes are not that scary. Just remember that once you've set your machine to do one, it'll continue doing all the buttonholes the same size. So really nice and easy. Go and try your machine buttonholes. So I hope that's been a helpful video and it's taken the fear out of doing machine buttonholes. Do give them a try. If you've liked this video, do like, share and subscribe my channel, and then you'll find out what else we've got coming up. All the tools we've used today will be available to see just below in links below. You can follow me also on social media and the links below as well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you soon.